All right. This is video number 4, Socialization, the Great Debate. We are not going to debate it here today, but I am going to talk about it because it is a great debate, and I'm going to be open and honest about how it is a great debate for everyone. Disclaimer, first of all, I am not here trying to persuade anyone to homeschool or try to give you your reasons why you should or shouldn't. You need to make those decisions on your own. And with that, I'm moving into socialization. The great debate. As homeschoolers, we are constantly hearing about how our children are unsocialized. And I'm not offended anymore. Every once in a while I do get offended. I got offended yesterday, I'll be honest with you, by something somebody said about how horrible it was that children in homeschools do not know how to socialize. Every child is probably going to be as weird as their parents because their parents spend the most time with them. You need to accept that. If you're a weirdo, your kid is going to be weird. If you're the coolest person on the planet, they're probably going to be the coolest person on the planet. And it doesn't have anything to do with how you choose to school them. If you are antisocial, your kid is likely to be antisocial because they're used to the way that you're raising them in an antisocial environment. If your kid is being raised by a parent that is extremely social, like myself, then they're going to maybe be extremely social. But if you look at my 5 kids, you will see that they all have their own individual personalities and they all are as social as their personality allows. It's pretty simple. And a popular thing we like to say is that our kids are not used to the way public schoolers socialize. I'm trying to say this very carefully because it's not about offending anyone. I was a public school kid. I grew up sitting in classrooms with a desk. I wasn't allowed to talk to my neighbor. I wasn't allowed at lunchtime to be too noisy. I wasn't allowed to play on recess at certain times. You know, there were all these little rules to follow, and some of those are great and they're necessary. Let me say they're necessary even when they're not great. They're necessary in a large group setting. You have to have some guidelines. But when you have a group of kids that are home all day that don't have to get in line to get their lunch, they don't understand why it's a big deal to get in line to get your lunch. Okay, they're not waiting in line behind 50 people. They just get up in the middle of what they're doing and they go have lunch, you know. And that may be in the middle of doing their assignment. Like, seriously, that happens. And it's okay because wherever they stopped, then they can pick back up. And they don't have to do everything in a certain order like we're kind of taught we do. And it's okay. It's okay. We sometimes catch a bad rap because our kids aren't socialized. My kids have said to me that oftentimes they're in group settings and people will say to them, well, you wouldn't understand that because you're a homeschooler. And it's very hurtful to them because they do understand what you're talking about, even if it's not something that they totally relate to. So oftentimes they're excluded because they're homeschoolers and there's no way they can understand, kind of thing. And they, you know, they get offended by that, but then they move on, you know. They aren't used to large group type things sometimes. They don't hold their hand up to go to the bathroom. You know, it's a little weird if you think about it, holding your hand up to go to the bathroom. In public school, you have to do that. That makes sense in that environment. But in your home, you just get up and go to the bathroom. You know, so the differences in how they socialize, they're not being told they can't talk to someone. Oftentimes, my kids will also tell me, and I'm kind of telling on my kids a little bit, and this is not to embarrass them or point out that any way that people have done them wrong. This is just to say that sometimes they're in an environment, my older ones have told me, where kids are talking and people think they're antisocial because they don't have anything to contribute to that conversation. And my kids will tell me, I just didn't have anything to say about that, or I thought it was a little childish. They're not calling your child childish. What they're saying is that sometimes in social environments, teenagers are very giggly and silly about boys and girls, and look at that guy, he's good, cute, oh my gosh. When you're raised at home with adults that don't do that, then when you get in public with students, say at church meetings and that sort of thing, that do that, the homeschool kid is going to often think, that's really silly. Why would you act that way about people? Because I think we focus more on talking to them about their emotions and their feelings about people, and oftentimes how just because somebody's cute doesn't mean it's something to get giggly about, That doesn't mean your kid's wrong if they've got a crush on every guy that walks by and they've got something to say about it. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that the social stigmas are just different. And that's a real hard thing to talk about, okay? So I want to talk about it because it is different. And if you start homeschooling your kids, you're going to notice that they're going to be a little bit different sometimes. And what I always try to tell people and my kids, different is not wrong, it's just different. It's okay that we're not all the same. It's okay if your kid is giggly and my kid is more serious. It's okay if you think my kid's not social because they don't get giggly, okay? If they don't understand something that is normal to you, you probably don't understand something that's normal to them. We can all be different and move on with that. So, going on with socialization, what connections can I make? I always say that homeschooling is like this super large secret underground. Once you are in it, then you know what's out there. Until you're in it, people are going to keep it secret because we don't want everybody following around our business, and that's just the way it is. We don't need you to know what meetups we're doing for art or science or field trips or our park days and all that sort of thing. I'm more open about those sort of things. If you've known me very long, you know that I talk about those kind of things openly on my Facebook page. I don't live in secret. I'm not afraid to walk outside because of how people are going to react to homeschoolers. There are people that do kind of stay inside a lot because they don't like the way people treat homeschoolers when they're out and about. They don't like their kids being asked, "Why aren't you in school today?" I don't care if you ask my kids why they're not in school today. If we're at the grocery store, they'll say, "Oh, well, we've already done our school," or "We're going to do our school when we go home." And, I don't really care what anybody thinks about that, but a lot of people do, and it's hard for them. There are a lot of connections to be made. So it's like this secret underground. Once you're in, you can join clubs, groups, Facebook pages. You can start getting to know people. You'll start connecting. People want to know if their kids are going to be alone forever. If you choose for them to be alone forever, they'll be alone. If you choose to get involved in social circles that they can get involved in, they will have friends. My kids have never had a shortage of friends, but I've worked hard on that, and I have to be willing to work hard on that. It's kind of like when your kid's in public school. If you want them to be a cheerleader, you know that there's a lot of stuff you're going to have to do. You're going to have to take them to that. You're going to have to do fundraisers. You're going to have to find money for it. You've got all these things you're going to have to do to get them to be the cheerleader kid. If you want your kid to have friends in the public school, homeschool circles, you are going to have to put effort into it, and that's just a reality of life. As with anything, whatever you put your effort into is what your kids are going to have available. If you want them to have prom, there will be a prom. If you want them to have dances, there will be a dance. If you want them to have sports, there will be sports. You have to get up and work for it. No one's going to give it all to you. In some cases, you may find situations where it's kind of there and available to you and made easy for you, but oftentimes you've got to get involved and get your hands dirty a little bit. Um, I would say start Googling things like Southeast Texas homeschool groups, um, Kuntz homeschool groups, Hardin County homeschool groups, Jefferson County homeschool groups, um, Jasper County homeschool groups, Angelina County homeschool groups. Um, Anything you can think of, Southeast Texas, spelled SETX. You start doing that and you start plugging in on these Facebook pages. Start asking, is there anyone in my area would like to meet at the park? I'd like to have a park date with a couple of people and learn from each other or see what age your kids are. I put together a park day I have for like 7 or 8 years, and make sure that happens. We're not doing it right now because of the COVID-19, but normally we do. That's how my kids meet people oftentimes. We get involved with clubs. There are sports, there are groups, there are clubs. The only thing I don't know about sports-wise is football, and there may be a football. I know there's track, basketball, volleyball, the list goes on. If you want to get your kids baseball, the list goes on and on. You just search for it. You start asking people. And that's pretty much it. You're going to have socialized kids if you want them to be socialized. You know, you got to put the work in for it. And, you know, sometimes parents don't want the work put in for that, but you have to. And I will not sugarcoat it. If you want your kids to have social opportunities, you have to look for them, you have to get involved in them, you have to make it happen, you have to take them to it, you have to sometimes be the one that creates it. So with that, happy homeschooling, have fun, know that it's a great journey. I've met the best friends that I have ever had in my life homeschooling, and the amazing thing is they're not just in my town. We've lived in 3 towns since we started homeschooling, but our friends go as far as, we've got friends in San Antonio. I mean, we've got friends in other states. Our core friends that we get together with and hang out are all over the Southeast Texas area, and they are amazing people that believe in working hard for their kids. And so if you want to be a part of a social group that works hard for their kids, you're in the right group now.